day, my beautifuls. Welcome to another episode of the Self-Care Diaries. I am so excited to be with you today and to introduce, I'm sure you know Gavin Sharples, but if you don't, you've been living under a rock. But this is one of my fellow professional speakers that I met at the Professional Speakers Association of South Africa. Gavin Sharples, welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. We are doing outstandingly.
That's fantastic. I wonder if you could share with us today, who is Gavin Sharples?
Just a guy, just a dude. I suppose, I don't know, I don't like speaking about myself much, and I think it's one of the ways I try and differ myself from other speakers on the circuit is everybody has a story and they try and tell you about the hard knocks and all that type of stuff. I just don't do that. I've been a speaker for about 25, 26 years. Can we count 2020 as being a speaker, or do we just scrap that off the calendar? Because I was a speaker until March. There wasn't a March, it was just March. I was a speaker until March, and then all of a sudden we stopped. So now when we tell people how long we've spoken for, do we exclude 2020 or do we include it? I don't know what to do there.
It's like a breakup, like those breakup relationships. You're like, I've been together for 6 years. Is that including the breakups or not?
The off times and the divorces and so about 25 years. And that's what I've been speaking mostly on change and doing things different, on action, on people basically getting off their backside and doing something, as opposed to bitching, whinging and moaning and complaining. And that's why, and obviously through that, I had a whole bunch of people coming to me after the one talk that I do based on change, how we get programmed. We start out as originals and we end up carbon copies. So a lot of people would come to me afterwards and say, for the younger viewers, a carbon copy is is when you take carbon paper and you put it on top. Okay, so maybe I should change that one. We start out originals and we end up, memes. Okay. And then a lot of people would come to me afterwards to say that's very, very nice, but what happens if your husband are a poople? And then you'd say, well, you got to work on your marriage. And then they'd say, well, how? And then a manager would come and say, but how do I do this? So I put together a Q&A book. It was called Shift Happens. That thing went out. And then I wrote another one called The Gift, and another one in sales. And then I've just done another one now. So I basically, people ask, what do you do for a living? I travel, and in between I speak a bit.
Amazing. The value that you bring, I mean, one of the reasons that I have you on our show today is because I'm so excited about the value that you bring to this world. And I wanted you to decide there's immense value that you bring, Gavin. And I hope you can see me looking at you, eyeballing you and saying, thank you, bro. From a
my eyes are here, looking down, my eyes are here. It's always weird on these things. Everybody looks at, I'm looking at you. I'm actually going to look at the green dot and speak to the green dot, which is weird.
So weird. So from my heart, all the women in the world, thank you for your latest book, The Real Manual. Please tell us a lot about it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think it does dovetail quite nicely into the self-care, because unfortunately, my research and my feelings and my witnessing of the last, I don't know, I've been around, 5.5 decades now, is that a lot of men are hurting. A lot of men have been the victims of not having been taken care of as children. So in other words, we look as children to be taken care of and by our moms and our dads. And unfortunately, the track record for that is not very good. And you're finding, when you ask, why is there so much violence against women? Why is there so much violence against children? And more importantly, why is there so much violence against men? Because no matter how bad the crime statistics are for women, and they are, I think a woman is murdered every 3 hours in our country. You are, if you want to just triple that, that's how likely you are to be killed in this country if you're a man. So men are killing not only women and children and raping and pillaging and robbing and stuff, but they do it to men as well. And the real question was why. It really bugged me. How could you have this species that is raised by the same systems, the same society. Yet so many of them just break off and become these vicious, horrible, stealing, conniving, and even in business, these people who steal and they steal from a company, and they don't give a crap about service and about how do you get these people. And then I started realizing, and the research is out, is that most men, 71% at the moment in this country, there's the official stat, I think was 63%, but the unofficial stat, depending on where you read, up to 70%, 71, 72% of families are not raised with two parents, and fathers are absent. Now, if you're talking about care, for a child to blossom, and this is just not me saying it, the research shows, in order for a child to blossom, it needs the care of a mother and a father, and it needs that mother and father to be in a caring relationship with each other. So if a child is raised in that environment, they want to go to school, they know when to say no, they have delayed gratification, that all the good stuff comes out of this concept of having this unity, this family where a child is raised. And if we're looking at 71%, I mean, they did a survey in the American criminal justice system. They went to all the prisons and they wanted to find out what was the commonality with hardcore criminals. Was there something in the upbringing, something about where, or a circumstance, or was it their color, their race, whatever? And it's actually now been published, and it's a known fact. 80% of all hardened criminals in the penal system didn't have a father present at home. So how on earth can you now, as a man, want to care for yourself or take care when you think nobody cares for you? Nobody did care for you. Nobody still cares for you. And now you get into a relationship, and as soon as something doesn't go your way, all these things come up, and you don't even know how to conduct yourself. You don't know what to do. You don't know what you say. So the only thing you know how to do is to lash out, because that's how we get respect. If you don't listen to me, if I don't get it my way, hey, that's the way it was done to me, so I am going to do it to you. So all of this put together, and just the fact of so many kids, so many boys and girls are, if you don't have a parent present, if you don't have somebody to help you, where do you go? So you're having a problem with a girlfriend, with a boyfriend, you're having a problem with a business, with a project, an assignment. Normally you'd go and sit down with dad and go, Dad, how do you do this? And dad will give you probably a totally different thing to mom will, and you get that balance. What happens when that person is not present? What happens when you have that questions, you don't know what to do? And I thought, maybe I need to put together a manual. I always dig that name whenever I say it. It's a manual. Because the idea is that you can go to the manual, you pick up the manual and you go, okay, I've got a problem with my finances. You go to the section on finances, you open it up and you find out where is that situation, you read about it, it's got an application, how do you do it, and then you close it. So, I mean, I know that one of the CEOs of one of the companies who we're looking to actually sponsor the manual actually called me and said, you know, Gavin, nobody's going to read this thing. He said, Gavin, I'm a reader, but this thing is like a dictionary. He said, it's too big. And I said, but the point is not to read it from cover to cover. You can. The point is, I'm having a problem with my wife, my girlfriend, a relationship. I go to that section, I read up what it says, and hopefully that'll help. So two things. Somebody said, when is the best time to speak to a man who's just beaten his wife? The answer is when that man was 12. Okay? So we need to start getting earlier and earlier to start telling people and start teaching people when what they can and cannot do in an environment. And unfortunately, that's missing. And somebody else said, the second point, be the person that you wish you had around when you were 15 or 16. And I think back to when I was 15 and 16 at school, and I needed answers to certain questions, and there was just certain things I couldn't go to my dad with. I just didn't want to go to my mom with. And you looked around at how do I handle the situation? And that's where I wanted to get something that just bridges that. And although it's designed and it's for men, because let's face it, men have issues, it's specifically for women, because women need to know that this is the benchmark. If your man in your life is not doing these things, that means they don't care about you. And if you're into self-care, you cannot be in a toxic relationship. Now, whether that toxic relationship is because of that person's fault, whether they don't know they're doing it, whether they know and they're doing it and they still keep doing it, you have to know the difference between right and wrong. And the reason I say it's for women, here's a true story. So I'm sitting with I can't mention the names. I'm sitting with a very high profile sporting personality, okay? And we start chatting, and I show him the manual, and we start talking about relationships. He said, I want to tell you a story. He says, we're having dinner, a whole bunch of friends, and one of my best mates has got a girlfriend, and the relationship's going fine. She comes to us when he goes to the bathroom and says, listen, you guys might have to support him a bit because I'm breaking up with him. And all of us are going, why? What's the matter? I mean, you guys are made for each other. Her answer, are you ready for this? He doesn't beat me.
What?
And they said, they said, did we hear you wrong? Yeah, he doesn't beat me. Only because if he obviously can't care about me because he doesn't beat me. And they said, what do you mean? She says, well, men who love you beat you. And then they started talking, and where did you get that from? And she said, well, when she was obviously unpacked after a while, when she was growing up, obviously her father would beat the crap out of the mother, and the mother, she would, obviously the daughter would be shocked, and she'd say, no, it's because he loves me. Because if he didn't love me, he wouldn't bother even hitting me. That's how that young girl was raised. So she gets into a relationship and she meets a good man. And this man just wants to shower with love and affection. And because of her brokenness and her issues, she now sees it as, well, that can't be love. And now she wants to go find a man who will be more like her father was to her mom. And that's just one. And you know, that's the huge example. That's the big example. But if you have a look at the subtleties as well, not even talk beating. Most women, the first relationship they ever have in their life is the relationship they have with their father. And a lot of women go and look for that same type of man, whether he's good, whether he's bad. That's what they know and that's what they understand as love. Obviously, some don't. Some go, well, I'm going to do the opposite to what that man was. So that will depend. But if you need to take care of yourself, you need to look at where you come from. You've got to look at that relationship, and then you've got to have some kind of a benchmark, something that says that's not acceptable behavior. Okay. I could go on and fill this thing for the next 3
I've got
hours.
goosebumps, Gavin. I've got goosebumps, and I work with men and women every day, and the trauma that sex addicts that I work with, and how the beatings that they've been through as men by their fathers, like beatings, and and just mom just not being able to protect them, and so they from a very young age learn to soothe through watching porn, and so they go down this road of various addictions. Sure, this topic is really emotive for me because it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I think that I was working with some sex workers in Cape Town. I ran a trauma group for ladies that were turning tricks for $5, dude. $5 and $2 they were turning tricks. And I ran a trauma group for them, and there was a guy that came from Norway. He was the head of the UN anti-trafficking of women and children. And he was saying, how important it is to focus on women's issues. And, since the 70s, they've had a female president and blah, blah, blah. And I stopped and I said, listen, I really respect the work that you do, and I really respect you as a man. But I think that you're only focusing on half the problem and half the solution if you're only focusing on women. Hurt people, and boys that are hurting men and women are hurting. They need love, they need healing, they need understanding, they need compassion, and they need guidance. And if we focus on
boundaries and limitations, that's another thing. Is and I think that's my approach to it. Is that yes, a lot of people will say, but then you're excusing their current behavior. So you're saying that he uses drugs, he uses porn, he uses alcohol, he does stuff, and you can justify it or excuse it because of their upbringing. And there must come a time when that person knows right from wrong, and that person knows that this is not serving me. And I'm on that side as well, is that sometimes what men need, and that's what we all need, is boundaries and limitations. And we need those boundaries set. So, I speak about it in the manual where I always have a thing called when you go into a manual and something doesn't work, okay? So you go to a point, and I'm trying to find an example of one, troubleshooting. So I state a point and everything, and the troubleshooting is normally the questions you get that are left of center. Somebody goes, and you go, but you haven't really thought through. But in the troubleshooting point of men being violent, men always go, yes, but I lost my temper, or I couldn't help it, or because I was beaten as a child. And I look at them and I say, okay, so you're excusing your violence or your conduct or something because of what happened to you. But let me just put you in a different scenario. I'm going to take you right now, and let's say he happens to be a white guy. I'm going to take this white guy because I'm trying to do the scariest thing I can do for a white man. Take him to a shebeen in the middle of a township where there are known thugs and gangsters. Take him into that shebeen by himself and say, you're going to go in there and you have to spend 2-3 hours having a drink. That fear that he feels, he will walk in there and be on his best behavior. He won't mess anybody up. I'll send him into a bunch of cage fighters, those guys who fight for a living. Go into that bar and you'll see that guy won't raise his voice. He won't speak up, he won't chirp, and he definitely will not hit anybody in that bar. You know why? Because he knows there will be consequences. Same thing with a black guy who's beaten and killed. Say, I'll put you in a circumstance where there are people who can fight back and people who won't just take it. Now all of a sudden the behavior of that man, now all of a sudden he's Mother Teresa. Now he's yes sir, no sir, 3 but I said, but hold on, what happened to I lost my temper? What happened to I couldn't control myself? So it's actually nonsense, because you can control yourself when there are consequences. And that's what I try and get across to men as well. The reason you will beat on a woman is because you're a coward, my friend. You're a coward because you know that that woman cannot defend herself. But as soon as somebody steps into her place who can defend himself, all of a sudden you shut up now. And that's my problem that I've got with men. So I believe there's a balance. I say, if you are using violence, if you are using anything to help you make it through the day, and whatever you are using is being destructive to your life, then you know it's a problem. So porn, I believe, has a place. Pornography has a place. I mean, it could be a teaching tool, it could be, and as long as it's consenting adults, and as long as you're in control, as long as you can know that I'm doing this, I'm doing it consciously, and it's when it starts harming your life, when it starts affecting you, when it starts making you a worse human being, when it starts taking away from what you can be, when it starts controlling. Yes, that's with money, that's with alcohol, that's with anything. But if you know that there are consequences, and if you know there's another way to act, if you know there are other strategies, that's what I want to try and get across to people, that there is another way, and you've got to follow that way, because if you don't, there are consequences. One of the reasons why crime is so rampant in our country, hardly any consequences. If you want to look at the conviction rate for rape and robbery and armed, the conviction rate that is shocking. It's almost like a collapse of law enforcement in our country. That's why, when they stand up and they say, we are going to speak to gender violence, we are going to speak to, it's just words, because you need to have consequences, you need boundaries, you need limitations, and until they put those in place and then put consequences, nothing really is going to change.
I love that. I mean, central to the work that I do is boundary setting. And I often people think that boundary setting's got to do with, other people setting boundaries with us. But I think the most powerful boundaries that we set are actually the boundaries we set with ourselves. So if we say, and that's about taking accountability and being responsible, having the ability to respond. And that's such a gift. Wow, I could talk to you for hours, dude.
Well, the ultimate superpower for men, and women, but the ultimate superpower is self-control. So if you honestly want to be a superhero, you just got to. So when you walk into a buffet, and you have all the sweets and crap that's on the table, if you can control yourself and not eat that, it means you take the power back that food has over you. If there's pornography and you can control and you can say, no, I do pornography on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and that's my time. And any other time, so whatever it is, if you have control with your eating, with what goes into your body, with where you hang out, with your friends, I've talked about kids at school, that if you have control, the guys, we're going to go there and we're going to go to piss, and you say, hold on, but I've got an exam, I've got this, and if you can control yourself, that is the ultimate thing. Now, you talk about self-care. If you control what you eat, what you drink, what you say, more importantly, what you put in your mind, if you control what you see, if you control that, there is no greater form of self-care than controlling your surroundings and your own life. And that's what I'm trying to get, because that's what real men do. Do we make mistakes? Of course they do. But when they make a mistake, they own up, they apologize, they fix what they did wrong, they overfix it, and then they move on. And they forgive themselves, because that's all part of self-care.
I love that. Gavin, there was a video you did where you were walking down the street and you saw I think you posted it on LinkedIn. So Gavin Sharples, I think, is your name on LinkedIn, yeah? So I really recommend people go and watch the video. But where you go and speak to these guys that were the rubbish collectors, and they were giving 2 young girls a hard time. And I loved how you spoke to the one guy and said, listen, dude, stop it. Like, can you see these girls are not wanting it? But then you had a spin on it, which I loved even more. And he's like, and you, excuse my language, fucking idiots, why are you letting your buddy get away with it? Why are you not saying, hey, like, catch a wake up? Like, this is not acceptable behavior. And I want to bring it down to, I was speaking to Shukri Tufi. I've asked him I've suggested that he get hold of you. He's working on a Mosaic magazine, are doing a thing called #Men Taking a Stand. And I interviewed Shukri Tufi for the Self-Care Diaries on the power of journaling. And we were speaking about how it's the grassroots level of encouraging respect and love within our country is going to be around the braai. Where our buddy is rude, like, hey Poppy, get my, where he's rude, to his wife or his girlfriend, and where we all snicker and Tommy is like that, we excuse his behavior. But no, if we say, hey buddy, there has to be another way that you can speak to her. When we start taking that kind of action on a grassroots level, I think that we've got a society that we can be really, really proud of. But I do think it takes guidance, and that's where I think your book is brilliant. I think your book is really well suited. I know that you offering them at schools. How can people get hold of you?
Okay, well, obviously it's Gavin Sharples Direct. The website, by the way, is the Real Man site. Literally, the Real Man site. There's a Facebook page for it as well. Just on those stories, I get some blowback. The bin guy. Obviously, I got blowback. Obviously, there's some guy who says, it's all macho stuff, and he attacked me for actually defending those girls. But I understand that, because from his point of view, and the way he sees the world and the way he was raised, that's an issue. But anyway, we sorted that one out. The next one is the whole thing of standing around a braai. And I think there was a moment in my life where this changed for me. So I was a young kid. My parents are standing around the braai, and can you hear the noise?
Very slight.
Okay, as long as you can't hear, there's the major drilling in the back here. So I'm standing around, and my mom and dad were standing around the braai with a whole bunch of other people. I don't know why I wasn't playing with other kids, but I happened to be standing there, and some guy started telling what in those days was described as an off-color joke. Okay, and my dad, without hesitation, literally said to the guy, "I'm terribly sorry, but there are ladies present." Now, normally what would happen is when that joke would start, my mom actually would hear it as well. My mom would excuse herself and say, I'm going to go check on something in the kitchen, because she wouldn't want to be around and listen to men degrade women, because that's who she was. And 2 or 3 women would probably excuse. At that instance, nobody had moved, and this guy came out of the blue and told the joke. Now, my father stepped in and went, inappropriate joke, there are ladies present. And he looked, and I must admit, he went, oh, terribly sorry. And I was so proud of my dad. I didn't know why, I didn't understand why, but I thought, that was pretty cool. So I realized back then, but fast forward to today, what happens when we stand around a braai with women and some guy tells a joke and it's off color and it's rude? What do the women do is they turn around and go, that's nothing. And then they'll tell you an even worse one. And you look and you go, we've got to hold ourselves. When you talk self-care, if somebody's in your presence and saying something you have to excuse yourself. Don't be rude. You say, excuse me, I've just got to. Or, as you said, stand up at the problem. And so we're playing poker many years ago. And the guy, it's funny, we become mates again. We're playing poker, and this guy's sitting around, and he goes, guys are chatting, and that's the thing about men. We like to get together and blow off some steam, and then don't mind our P's and Q's. The guy started, my friend, started bragging about he couldn't remember how he got home last night because he was so drunk. He says he woke up in the morning and his wife was just moaning and shouting at him because the car was literally in the flower bed. He doesn't remember how he got home. He doesn't remember the flower bed, but now he's joking about how he's going to have the car fixed and that time. And I'm sitting playing poker with this person. Now, in my book, that's unacceptable behavior for a couple of reasons. He could have killed somebody on the way home. He doesn't even know about it. He could have taken somebody's child out. Number one. Number two. Number three. I know his wife, lovely lady. I know his kids, wonderful kids. This man is sitting and he's conducting himself in basically a Neanderthal way. Now I'm sitting there and now I'm saying to him, do you know what? I don't think that's acceptable. I think you're wrong. I think this. Do you think I got love at the table? The energy went down. Everybody played very silently, and two of those guys never came back to the poker table. Now, fast forward 15 years, I spoke to that guy again, and he said it was one of the best little pep talks he ever got. Not at that time. So when you do step up, when you do step forward, please don't think that you're going to get patted on the back and people are going to call you a hero. You are basically critiquing somebody's conduct, and nobody likes it when you do that, especially when you do it in front of the people. Look, their behavior is in front of the people, so they should be called to order in front of the people. But you also got to be careful the way you do it, especially in this country, because in this country, there's a lot of violence. And if you're correcting a man, especially, they will get violent with you just like this. So again, it's that balancing act that we have to do. You've got to correct, you've got to step forward. But also, I was standing there with those dustbin guys. There were 5 of them and me. And afterwards, when I was walking, I was thinking, well, that wasn't really the smartest thing to do. But my instinct just kicked in and I had to actually do it and then call the other guys to account and order. That was one of those bets. Obviously, I get home, my wife shouts at me, what are you doing? You're trying to save the world. But wait, there's a sad footnote to that. So the young girl and the older girl and the little girl that they were walking, there's 3 of them. You would imagine after an event like that they would take more care. 2 days later, they're walking down the same road, past the same guys, doing the same thing. And I stopped them and I said, do you know how dangerous it is for you to be walking around with little baby girl like this? She says, oh no, it's well, the little girl wants to go for a walk every day, so we have to take her. I said, you know what? You got a close shave the other day and you didn't even learn from that. You didn't learn that you've got to take more care. You've got to have, even if you've got to go walking in a different place or try and find a place that's surrounded with fencing where there are guys with guards, you've got to, listen, we live in one of those violent societies in the world. You've got to take care. We're talking about self-care, and I'm saying is, how safe is your house? Are you going jogging and telling people where you're going and how you're going? Because it's not a case of a woman. In our area, the men are being attacked. Their mountain bikes have been stolen. They've been mugged. The estate agent the other day ran around a corner. They hit him with a bat in his face. He woke up, he had nothing. They took everything from him and he had nose broken, and that's a grown man. You've got to take care. When we talk about self-care, we're talking about, are you safe? Are you safe in your house? Are you safe when you exercise? Are you safe when you walk? And you've got to keep being aware of these things. And that's some of the things we try and talk about. That whole awareness of what's happening around you and others. It's very
like becoming conscious of one's environment and not living in a state of fear, but living in a state of awareness. I love that.
Exactly.
I have loved spending time with you. I know that you're crazy busy, so I really appreciate the time that you spent with us. I will be sure to let you know when this goes live. I'll send you all the links, and thank you so much for your time. I will continue to follow you, continue to share your stuff, and I am definitely putting in an order for 2 books, one for my son and one for my husband. So I'll get hold of you to buy 2.
That's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to get them in the schools. We've already approached 3 schools. The principals just want to go. So we're trying to get guys who'll sponsor 10, 15, 20, 100 books. And then we sit down with the grade 11s and 12s and girls and boys. And we open up the conversation, the dialogue about holding men to be more accountable and to hold them to a higher standard.
Lovely. Amazing. I bless your road going forward. May it open many doors and transform many lives. And I think that the men of our country are such brilliant people, and I think they just need some guidance. So, from my heart to yours, and thanks to Sam for organizing today's interview. Take care.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for joining us today with Gavin Sharples, a fascinating discussion about the importance of being a man, being accountable, and his beautiful book, The Real Manual, is available. I'll be sending please get hold of Gavin Sharples on LinkedIn, Facebook, or on email. Have a beautiful day. Bye. Good day. I hope you're well. So the Self-Care Diaries is everything about self-care. And so today I thought that I'd introduce you to the self-care kit that we've created. But before I do that, I'd like to share a quote with you by Audre Lorde, where she said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare." So I think that political warfare in this instance has got to do with fighting with that belief that we're not important and that we've got to put other people first. And often we then pour from an empty cup. So we've created a product that we're very, very excited about and has been going to far corners of South Africa. And I thought I'd share it with you today. So it comes in this beautiful organza bag. And there is a journal with a pen. Sorry, the pictures are a bit funny. There's a journal with a pen. And then there are 6 cards in this little bag. And the 6 cards relate to the 6 areas of life, being spiritual. I don't know if you're going to be able to read spiritual, emotional, psychological, professional, physical, and personal. And there's a card in here that shows you how to use the kit. And then there's a bonus card where you can email me and I will send you your ebook on self-care. So how does this work? Is that you choose a card out of the 6. So let's say I'm going to choose that one. And today it's a physical card that I've chosen. And there's 1 to 6 prompts on each card. And let's say 3 is mine. And it says, today take some time off and plan a holiday. That is a really awesome idea. And I'm planning a holiday at the end of September. But I think today I could think about what are the kinds of things I could do on that holiday. So that I'll make a note to do today. And so each day you get to choose something new to do. And then you use your beautiful journal here to journal your experience and make your plans and create magic. Like Shukri Tufi said in our one YouTube video, please go check it out. It's really interesting about the power of journaling and how the energy of something changes. He said the energy of something changes when you write it down. The frequency of something changes. And it's so good to get something out of our head and onto paper, because then we get some objectivity and we're able to gain some more self-awareness. So if you'd like to order a self-care kit, please go and look at my website, www.leighjoy.co.za, and that's leighjoy.co.za, and you'll go to the shop and then you'll see the self-care kits there. I'm wishing you a beautiful day.